Hi everybody! My name is Michelle the Bookworm, and in this week's video I'm going to be doing an opinion piece where I compare audiobooks to actual print novels. I am currently in Tucson, Arizona, visiting my boyfriend's family, but everyone's taking a little bit of downtime before the big game. So they're all Patriots fans, so they gave me this nifty t-shirt to wear for the day. But before all that fun happens, I wanted to go ahead and make this video. So I will be, again, reading out of my handy dandy notebook, which I made a lot of notes from. So if you see me looking down, that's probably why. So recently, in this video, I'm going to be talking about the differences in between, in my opinion, between reading versus an audiobook, which recently I've done both. I recently read The Two Towers from Lord of the Rings, and I mainly listened to that on audiobook. And currently I'm reading The Return of the King, and I'm actually reading the text. So I wanted to talk about the pros and cons of both and kind of comparing the two. So I'd like to start with audiobooks because it's something that I've kind of only recently done. I've mainly been more of a physical novel type reader. So listening to an audiobook has been kind of a new experience for me. The pros that I like about audiobooks is that it allows me to multitask. I can be listening to an audiobook while doing mundane activities such as making breakfast, cleaning my room, like while I'm on the bus, or while I'm on public transportation, while I'm out and about. I can just be listening to an audiobook, and it kind of gives me something to do when the task at hand is kind of pretty much meaningless. And actually I found that listening to an audiobook can be really motivating. For those of you who know me, I hate working out. I really do. But I know that it's good for me. So frequently when I'm at the gym, lately I've been, jogging and listening to my audiobook, which, like, once I'm kind of in the zone of exercising and listening to this book, I kind of forget about, hey, I'm actually exercising and doing something that's good for my health. So it takes away the boredom and takes the boredom out of mundane activities, such as cleaning my room, which I absolutely despise. It's also motivating, and it distracts me from unpleasant activities that I'd honestly rather not be doing. And another reason why I really like audiobooks is that it's like listening to a story. I used to love being read stories when I was younger, and so it's kind of nice to have that still as an adult. You can just sit back and listen to somebody else read you this really cool story and get really engaged, and it's really fun. The audiobook that I listened to was posted on YouTube by DeathCon, and in that audiobook of The Two Towers, the person used different voice actors for the different characters, and I really, really, really liked that because it allowed me to be more immersed into the story and kind of added that extra depth to the narrative. And another thing about audiobooks is that it's pretty easily available. I mean, yes, there's Audible, which you do have to pay for, but I found plenty of websites such as YouTube, LibriVox, and that provide audiobooks, and even from the library, so they are way more easily accessible today than they have been in the past. The cons that I have found, there are plenty of cons that I have found to audiobooks. My number one is that you can't annotate an audiobook. I really like annotating and writing in the margins and kind of writing my thoughts while I read a book. Because I really think it's fun to go back and see, like, if I reread a book, especially for a book that I think I'm going to reread, it's fun to go back and see how my ideas have changed. And you really can't do that with an audiobook. Another downside to audiobooks that I found is that it makes you extremely dependent on your devices, which means that you always have to either be on your phone or your computer, and that can be problematic. All these things need to be charged. My headphones, even though they're wireless, they have to be charged. My phone has to be charged. So the downside to audiobooks is that, and any ebook, is that it's completely dependent on your device. If it breaks, if it dies, you don't get your book, which kind of sucks. Another con that I found to audiobooks is that there are plenty of sites that you have to pay for. Audible, you have to pay for, and you only get one book free when you sign up. So not only do you have to pay for the site, but you have to pay for the book as well, which kind of sucks. But that was another downside that I found to it. There are some free audiobooks out there, but some of the free ones are absolutely terrible. For instance, I've been listening to this one audiobook of The Swiss Family Robinson, and I'm not sure, I found it on LibriVox, and I'm not sure if it's the book or the voice acting, but I really, really, really don't like it. It's just, the voice actors are just so bad. It's just bad. So I find sometimes that if I'm reading a book or wanting to listen to a book, I have to shop around for the right kind of voice acting, which kind of adds to another layer. Not only do I have to find the right book that I think I'm going to find interesting, but I have to find the right voice actors, which I'm actually going to want to listen to. So that does complicate the situation. Another thing I don't really like about audiobooks is that I develop this voice in my head when I'm reading for the characters in the books. And when you have voice actors, those voice actors determine what those actors sound like instead of you. So that's another thing that I don't really like about audiobooks, is that you don't get that kind of creative aspect for yourself. And lastly, the last thing that I don't really like about audiobooks is that you can kind of tune them out. If you aren't actively paying attention to the audiobook, you tend to it becomes background noise that you just really don't pay attention to. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is the hard copy, which means the actual printed novel. In the past, I've actually preferred hard copies over anything else and that's for various reasons. So the pros is that there are huge aesthetics for me for having a hard copy of the novel. It's for any reader out there, they know it's the smell of the pages, it's the weight of the book. Personally, I love a really heavy book, like a heavy hard copy book, because it's kind of like a little friend that you can feel in your bag. Like whenever the day's kind of going on, you can just feel that book in your bag and know that you got a friend right there. Maybe that's just me, but it's something comforting about that. And a lot of books also have sentimental value. For instance, the I talked about it in my last video, the Lord of the Rings book that I'm currently reading actually once belonged to my brother. So even though it's, the cheap movie version of the Lord of the Rings where it's all 3 books into one big copy, it has a lot of sentimental value because I got it from my big brother. And that's not something that you can pass on when you have audiobooks. Another thing that I really like about hard copies that I'm starting to really love is annotating. So lately I have been writing in my books, I've been doing sticky tabs in my books, and I'll go over that in another video, my whole process for that, because I haven't really fully developed the process myself. But it's allowed me to engage in the book in a way that I haven't been able to in the past. And you can't engage like that with a regular audiobook. Now, again, there are some cons to the hard copies books that I found. Personally, I love using the library because the library that I go to, there's a branch right across the street from my house. It is so easy for me to go to the library and pick out a book. But you can't annotate a library book. If you do, they get really pissed off and you end up having to buy it yourself. I really do love the weight of a big book, but lately, especially when I'm on public transportation, I'll be trying to read this big, thick book while I'm standing on the bus, and it just doesn't work out so well. So big books can be pretty cumbersome, especially if you're having to travel or if you're in school and you already have a whole lot of textbooks. That extra big book is just another pound that you have to carry on your back, and it's really cumbersome. I lost my place. 1 second. So books are really hard to read on the go. An audiobook, you can just have it in your ear and have it be playing while you're going somewhere. With books, you really can't. And books are pretty expensive. I mean, audiobooks are pretty expensive as well, but books can easily be damaged. I feel like every book that I buy somehow gets water damaged. I can have this thing pristine clean and have it in a plastic sack, and somehow it will get water on it. Probably because I live in Oregon and there's water everywhere. But somehow, even if I buy a brand new book, it's going to get ruined. So that's personally why I always buy used books, because I know they're gonna get water damage somehow. And again, it's really hard if you don't read actively, it's really hard to pay attention. It can be hard to pay attention to a novel. There's plenty of times when I was in college where I was trying to read a book and I would just be reading the lines on the page but not absorbing it. And that can be really difficult. So this argument has been an age-long argument or debate. Not really an argument, but a debate about which form of media is superior. Is it the old-fashioned novels that are better, or is it the electronic audiobooks? My opinion is that I think they work best. I think that they are both fantastic. I think that they are both equally good. And maybe that sounds like a cop-out answer, so let me explain. So I think that both are fantastic, even on their own. So whether I read a book or I listen to a book, it kind of depends on the situation. For instance, if I'm on the go, if I'm out in public, if I'm trying to be active, an audiobook is the way to go. It's It's better for multitasking, it's better for public transportation, it's better for having that active lifestyle. And at the same, but a book is really good for when you really want to just relax. You can't, if you're in a place where electronics is frowned upon. For instance, I'm an assistant teacher, so I can't really be listening to an audiobook while I'm in class. It's more appropriate for me to have a physical book in class, for instance, while the kids are doing their own work. It doesn't look good for me to have my head plugged into some earphones listening to an audiobook. So cases like that, a hard copy is better. But another thing that I've actually been doing recently is I've been doing both audiobooks and physical copies at the same time. So I'll be listening to an audiobook while I'm reading my text, and I found that this is really nice because it kind of helps me with my annotating. I can go ahead and take notes I realize that I have a mark here from scratching my face. It's probably not the greatest idea. Anyway, so I found that I can listen to an audiobook, and if there's something that I wanted to take notes about in my text, I can go ahead and do that while still paying attention to what's going on with the story, so I don't actually have to stop to take notes. And I find that extremely helpful, particularly considering that I'm really wanting to do more with book reviews lately. Also, in general, I think that it's really kind of cool that we live in an age where we have multiple forms of media in order to read. I love the fact that I can have a hard copy for certain situations, I can have an audiobook for certain situations, and it just gives me multiple medias in order to read my books. So I literally have a way to read or listen to a book for just about any situation in my life. And that's another reason why I think that they both have their pros, they both have their cons, and it just really depends on the situation and using whichever media you feel fits the situation. So that's my opinion. I know it does feel a little bit like a cop-out answer. I don't really have a huge preference. I prefer both, depending on the situation. But I would also kind of like to hear what you think. My end of the video question is, do you prefer audiobooks or do you prefer hard copies? Do you prefer another method of reading? I don't generally partake in ebooks, but I know a lot of people who do advocate for them and do have Kindles. Which method of reading do you prefer and why? Feel free to leave any comments or a reaction video in the comments below, and I look forward to hearing your opinions, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. I just love opening it up to conversation. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!